We don't know who they are. He offers three explanations in Shar HaAsiri in the 10th chapter. First explanation, he says, is the obvious. He says that, of course, a tzaddik and a tzaddik and a Baal Tshuva, these are two different people in kind. They have different issues, different struggles, different things that they overcame. The Gemara doesn't mean that one is really greater than the other. What the Gemara really means is that each one has his own place and never the twain shall meet, because they can't be together, because they're different, they're separate. So the Gemara just means to say that Makom Shebali Tshuva, the place where the Bali Tshuva stand is not the place where the Tzaddikim stand, because they stand in different places. But it's not like the Baal Tshuva, the one who's repentant, stands in a higher place than the one who's not repentant. That's his first explanation. The second explanation he offers is, as he says, that ki habor yasa b'shvil Bali Tshuva yosem mashi yasa b'shvil tzaddikim. The Creator is more sensitive to the Baal Tshuva than he is to the righteous person. He says a mashal to this. He says, imagine if you have a king, you have a person. Maybe the mashal could be even better if you have parents and they have children, and one child is a perfect child. They never do anything wrong, but the other child is rebellious. They're transient. They're always doing things that are compromising their stature and their ability to learn and everything else. And they come back to the parents at eventually a certain point and they apologize. They say that they're sorry. So the parents are going to heed to that child more than they heed to the child that comes to the request that never has done anything wrong. Why? Because the parents know that the child that has done something wrong and has come back is more fragile. They're more apt to run away again. They're more apt to rebel again. Therefore, if the two children come with a request to the parents will heed to the request of the child that's rebellious. Why? Because they know that the child that's not rebellious, they never will be rebellious. They're always going to listen. They're always going to honor them properly. They're always going to do the right thing. And so therefore, if they tell them to wait, they put them aside, that child will be okay. But the other child, they're afraid that if they don't heed to their request, if they don't listen to them, then what's going to happen is that they're going to run away again. Therefore, therefore the parent gives that child priority over the other. So too over here also, the Balei Tshuva the people who are repentant stand in a different place than the Tzaddikim Gemara, perhaps even a higher place. But they don't stand in the higher place because they're better. They don't stand in a higher place because they deserve it more. They stand in that higher place because Hashem has a special sensitivity for them. He's afraid, so to speak, if we could say this about Hashem, he's treating them differently because he wants to make sure that they remain in the fold once they have already come back. That's his second explanation. And the third explanation, he says, the Sefer HaYashar, he says, Perush Achar v'hu anocha, and this he holds to be correct. And this is interesting explanation. He says, Ki yesh ba'alei tshuva shelibum nochon kalev tzadikim. A person who's a Baal Tshuva doesn't necessarily have to be a person who's never heard of Judaism, who's never been involved. It could be a person who has been righteous, right? Just like a righteous person who's never sinned. The same exact. They're no different. But what happened was Vishagu on this Damalem Aveira v'Gavar Aleim HaYetzer. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time. They got caught up in their Yetzirah, in their inclination, and they succumbed. And what could they do? They made a mistake. People make mistakes, but that doesn't mean that deep down inside they are not the same. They don't have the same affiliations, the same thought processes, the same commitment to Hashem as a tzaddik does. They're exactly the same as the tzaddik. And so therefore he says that when they come back 100-fold. You know, it's like when we do something and then we veer off the path of whatever it is that we're doing. I don't know, if let's say, for example, we're doing exercise and then we slack for a little bit, for a month or two, or perhaps maybe even 10 years. But when we come back with a vengeance. We come back with a strength, a commitment that we didn't even have before, because we're afraid to slip. So in that case, the Baal Tshuva he's like a tzaddik before his infraction. And he's like a tzaddik after his infraction, but he's coming back with a vengeance. He's stronger, bigger than he ever was before. And the tzaddik is not necessarily like that. And so therefore the Baal Tshuva has he's better than he was before his infraction, after his infraction. Why? Because now he's working harder to make sure that what happened to him before is not going to happen to him again. And so therefore the Baal Tshuva, he says, is stronger, higher level than the tzaddik. And this he holds is the correct shot. This is the three explanations which Sefer Yasher gives. Again, explanation number one, says the Sefer Yasher, is that yes, the Baalei Tshuva and the Tzaddikim have different places, but doesn't necessarily mean that one is better than the other. Second explanation, he says, is that the Baal Tshuva is weaker, therefore Hashem is more sensitive to him. But the Tzaddik is really greater. The third explanation, he says, is that the Baal Tshuva is exactly like the Tzaddik, but even better, because now he's coming back with a more ferocious commitment to serving Hashem. And so therefore the person who comes back is greater than the Tzaddik. That's the Sefer HaYashar. The Divrei Yehoshua, Rabbi Yeshua Heller, has a similar explanation, but it is a bit different. He says that one of the things here he is in his book, the Divrei Yeshua, Maimer number 2, chapter number 1. He says that there are many reasons why we do things. There are many reasons why we make mistakes. There are many reasons why we rebel, or maybe we veer from the right path. One of those reasons is, he says, nature. Some people have a nature that they just, they're naturally angry, they're naturally ferocious, they're naturally violent, they naturally have desires, and the nature, like Esav Arasha, for example, like they're drawn after the Yetzer Hara, they're drawn after the things that are wrong. This is one of the things that make us make a mistake. But he says, of course, that's only if we look at that one particular element in ourselves. Let's say we're the type of person who gets angry, right? But we're also not the type of person that gets angry, because we have other elements to our personality. We're a father, we're a son, we're a mother, we're a daughter, we're a child, we are a teacher, we are a worker, we are a colleague, we are a neighbor, we have kindness, we in addition to our anger, perhaps maybe we have diligence. It's not, if we focus on that particular item, yes, perhaps maybe we could look at that particular nature, let's say, of anger, as something which may not be so beneficial. But he says the Divrei Yeshua that we need to look at ourselves as a whole person, not as a partial person, but as a whole person, as the sum of all of the things. And he says, when we look at it in that context, we see that the particular trait that we have that may make us make mistakes may be a benefit in the context of who we are. He says, for example, l'mashal, if we give a parable, koach hachabimus, if a person, let's say they're hot, they're very hot. Some people, their blood boils. They're very, very hot. These people, he says, get angry. Everything that happens, they're always flaring up with anger. Ulam, however, bin toso elatov. However, if they take that anger and they veer it towards good, what's going to happen out of that? Zealotry. What's going to happen out of that is ferociousness towards doing good. With this power, el asas kol tov. That person will be stronger in doing good things than somebody else, because they're going to be using that heat, that ferociousness that they have inside them to do good. Everything will be done quickly. As we know, the Mesilas Yesharim says that one of the ways that a person improves, one of the ways that a person grows, is with zrizus, with zealotry. That zealotry comes from the heat that a person has inside. And he says, Takish al-Ashar, we can compare this to everything else. There is nothing ever that can be labeled. He says the classic perspective that we have, they can never be labeled anything in a person that's really bad. Nothing is really bad. That cannot be used for good. mitzvahs, when they use the guide of the Torah and the mitzvahs. And he says that if we don't look at life like this, then we will say that person doesn't have free will. That Esav had free will. That was Esav be able to choose to be a good person? Of course he did. It wasn't predetermined for him to be evil. Of course he could have been good. We all know the Rashi in Parshas Vayishlach. We all know that Dinah would have, Rashi speculates in the name of the Medrash that Dinah would have changed him. Dinah would have made him a bad person, a good person. He was born with he was born red, to indicate the redness of his blood, the ferociousness of his personality, but still he could have been a good person. This, he says, is we do make a mistake sometimes because of our nature, but our nature should be transformed. Our nature should be transformed into doing good. And he says this, with this idea, we can answer our Gemara also. He quotes the Gemara that we have answered. And again, what does the Gemara say? Just to review, Rabbi Avo is of the position of that a person who is a Baal Tshuva, a person who is repenting, who has changed and returned, is greater than the Tzaddik Gomer. He is greater than the righteous person. Says the Divrei Yeshua, and this is similar to the third explanation of the Sefer HaYashar, but I think it's a little bit different if you think about it when you have a chance. Says the Divrei Yeshua, he says that in order for a person who is a Baal Tshuva, for example, in our example, who is easily angered, a person who is easily can become hot and scream, that person needs to channel that anger in order to return. That is his bridge. That is her ticket. This is the medium through which, the device through which they change. The heat is what they need to turn into using. It's like as if Hashem is speaking to that person. If I'm relating the Divrei Yeshua correctly, it's as if Hashem is speaking to that person and says, I gave you an inordinate amount of anger. I gave you an inordinate amount of heat and a disposition, a proclivity towards this anger and this heat that you have, this ferociousness that you have. So much so, I gave it to such a great degree, I gave it to you that it made you stumble. But my expectation, Hashem says to the Baal Tshuva, is for you to use it to become the Baal Tshuva. This is what you have to change. This is what you have to veer to change yourself. So the person who's the Baal Tshuva in the eyes of the Divrei Yeshua, he is not only a tzaddik who's never made a mistake, but he is the person who has taken his nature, who has taken his proclivity and transformed it into something good. He has transformed it into placing it as a unit in the context of his entire personality, which transformed him and made him good. He is a builder of himself. He is a builder of his character. And because of that, he is a greater person than the tzaddik who never built the way that the Baal Tshuva has built. This is the opinion of the Divrei Yeshua. So these are so far we have three explanations of this Gemara, and now we come to our main point, and that is the explanation of the Maral in various different places, amongst them in his Sefer, the Tiferes Yisrael, and the Maral explanation, he ties it into Pesach, and I think you will see, we will see that this is an important idea that perhaps maybe we should keep in mind for the concept that we always know that we look at ourselves as being kings on Pesach. We look at ourselves as being B'nai Choren on Pesach, as being free on Pesach. What does this mean? What exactly happened to us on Pesach in Mitzrayim? What exactly happened in the Exodus? What exactly happened in the Geula that changed us as a nation forever? This is what the Maral is going to explain, and this is our main idea that we wanted to share this evening. The Maral says in his Tiferes Yisrael, which deals with discussing the written law and all its different aspects. So in chapter 57, he says the following. He says, Rabbi Avo cholek v'oimer. Rabbi Avo disagrees, and he with the opinion that we mentioned before. V'tam davar zeh muflag v'amok me'od me'od. He says the reasoning for this is very deep. why the Baal Tshuva is greater than the tzaddik. He says, a righteous person, even though he's righteous, the tzaddik is from his level, is from this world. The tzaddik has never left this world. He was always a tzaddik in this world. He remained a tzaddik in this world, and he is a tzaddik in this world. And why? Because he's a human, just like all the rest of the humans, just like all of us. He is a human that was born here, that grew up here, and he is here as a tzaddik. That's what he is. That's his identity. That is his makeup. That's the mechanics. That's the DNA of the tzaddik gomer. Of Russia, but a person who all of his days was a bad person, and then he returned and became a tzaddik. There is no question that one who separates himself from something is a higher level than one who did not have to separate himself. That's somebody who is never separated is less than the one who had to separate. He says that that's what it says in Pesach 49b. He says, somebody who goes the other way, somebody who rebels against the Torah, hates the Torah even more than the one who's never been affiliated with it. This is what the Gemara says. A person who's never heard of Talmidei Chacham, of Torah scholars, has never heard of Jews, is not as acrimonious, hostile towards Jews. But a person who knows Jews, who may be a Jew themselves and is misguided, and they have separated themselves, they distance themselves from Jews, are distancing themselves even more, with more hatred, with more hostility and acrimony than the one who doesn't know. And therefore it works in reverse. Somebody who is separated from Hashem comes back with a more ferociousness, with more spirituality, with more closeness than the one who has never been separated. That is the nature of how these things work. And he says, and this is where he relates. Now he says he relates this to Pesach, and he says that we say in the Aseres HaDibros, we say in the Ten Commandments, it says in Parshas Yisro, I am Hashem your God who has taken you out of the house of slaves. What are we talking about? We're talking about Mitzrayim, right? We're talking about the celebration of Pesach, celebrating that Asher Tzesicha, that I've taken you out from the house of slaves. Ki aprisha min ha'abdus, following this logic, says the Maral, that one who separates is greater than one who's never separated before. Ki aprisha min ha'abdus hu yoser b'mala, somebody who separates from slavery. Somebody who's been a slave and separates from slavery is greater than the one who's never been a slave. Ki aprisha min ha'abdus hu yoser b'mala. That person is much, much higher, right? Because now a person who has never been, according to the logic that we've just enumerated, a person who's never been a slave has never separated himself from slavery. So therefore you can imagine, he's not really separate from the slavery, he's just not a slave, right? But a person who's been a slave has to separate themselves from the slavery, not to be a slave. They have to actually walk away from the slavery. So you have a person who's never been a slave and a person who's walked away from the slavery. Therefore, he's never going to be a slave because he's away from it. He's walked away from it. He has distanced himself from it completely. The person who has never been a slave may become a slave in the future. He's a little bit closer, right? He's a little bit closer. Therefore, the person who's been a slave and is no longer a slave is greater than the person who's never been a slave. He says, and the same thing is the explanation of our Gemara in Brachos. This is the Gemara in Brachos is really the theme of the entire Pesach, according to what the Maral is saying. And that is, somebody who separates themselves from Avera, from infraction. A person, what was that person? What is chet? What is infraction? When we do something wrong, when we're not the ideal selves that we wish to be, what are we doing? We are engrossing ourselves in this world. We are engrossing ourselves in physicality. We're engrossing ourselves in matter, in this world. And what happens when we separate from that? What happens when we walk away from it? A person who was veering towards that, to physicality, the person who, what we're doing is, when we separate ourselves from the physical world, we're actually walking away from the physicality. We're saying, we're distancing the physicality from ourselves. We're saying, no more. We're gone from it. Now we're going to be more spiritual. We're going to daven better. We're going to bench better. We're going to learn better. We're going to be more sensitive to the Torah and what it stands for. That we're making a conscious decision to be closer to Hashem. That's greater than one who's been a tzaddik gamur, who made a conscious decision to conduct their life in a certain way, but they've never pushed it away. They've never pushed away the infraction. That's what the Maral says. He says, this level, which is extricating oneself from sin, lo bo mitzad olam hazeh. It doesn't come from this world, because how is it possible that a person can remove themselves from this world? They have to reach up, they have to grasp at something which is beyond this world to get themselves away. A tzaddik is like a flatliner. A tzaddik is like a flatliner. He's going straight all the time, and it's fantastic, beautiful. But a person who's committed an infraction, a person who's veered, now he has sunk. How do you get yourself out of that depth? How do you take yourself out of that? What do? You have to reach higher than the physicality of the world that exists, in which one we are sunk in order to extricate ourselves. And that's a level that is beyond Olam Hazeh. We have to reach into, so to speak, the Olam Haba, the next world, the world to come. So the person who's about tshuva, a person who's repented, is a person who has repented, is a person who has reached, so to speak, metaphysically reached into the Olam Haba. He has reached into the world to come. He is greater than the tzaddik who has never reached there. He's always been in Olam Hazeh. He's always been there. Therefore, he removes the physical. The person who's the Baal Tshuva removes the physicality in which was the sin. And this, of course, is the implication. This, of course, is the implication of Pesach, because a person was a slave. In order not to be a slave, they can't rely on the slavery position to remove themselves from being a slave, right? A person who is a slave has to reach beyond the slavery to remove themselves. They have to reach into freedom to be not a slave. So we who, as the Maral continues, I'm skipping a little bit in this chapter. He says, that just like the Jewish people were slaves to Paro, the Yotzu Lucheris, and they went into freedom, Konu Madrega Yoiser Elyona. They acquired a higher level. Shayukulim b'nei malachim, they are all kings, as the Gemara says in Shabbos 111a. The Gemara there says a halacha in the Mishnah. Take a look there if you want to see that that the halacha on Shabbos changes regarding us, because we have a halacha, we have a din. There is a law that defines us as all being kings, and therefore we are treated in halacha as such. But this is not for now. We are different than all the nations of the world because of this. Because we had to reach into slavery to extricate, into freedom, to extricate ourselves from slavery. While the other nations of the world never had to reach into the freedom because they were never in the slavery situation. There was the removal of servitude by Yitziyah. We removed ourselves from it. Says the Maral, the only way that's possible is to reach a higher level. So therefore, when we sit on Seder night, when we sit on Pesach night together, when we sit and we celebrate the Seder, we are celebrating that we are on a higher level of freedom. We are celebrating the fact that we have removed ourselves, distanced ourselves as much as one can distance oneself from the concept of slavery. The true freedom which makes a person into a king, which makes a person into free. This is the whole theme of Pesach, to celebrate this chayres, that we are b'nei chore. Shein sheich b'em lavdus, we have not, it's not like we said before, it's not pertinent by our slavery. It's impossible. A person who's never been enslaved, it's possible they can be enslaved. But a Jew, a Yid, all of us, Klal Yisrael, it's not possible to enslave us anymore because we have reached into freedom in order to extricate our slavery, and that freedom that we reached into have encompassed our identity. And now we identify with the composition of our makeup as ones who are free. We are in essence free people in our DNA. And once we reach that level, Yotzu, that's when we left. That's when we left Mitzrayim. Says the Maral, because if it would be possible for us to be enslaved, then we would never have left Mitzrayim. It's only when we reach the level where it's impossible for us to be enslaved, that's when we were able to leave Mitzrayim. So even though once we became enslaved, once we became enslaved, the only way for us to be freed is through a higher level. And so just can't help this. In the notes of this Maral, the Rabbi Hartman quotes the Gemara in Shabbos on page 32a, which is pertinent to our, which is unfortunately Nogeya, which is pertinent to us during this pandemic that we find ourselves in, the coronavirus. The Gemara says in Shabbos on page 32a, a person should daven that they should not get sick before they get sick. Chas v'sholem, if they get sick, a person should daven that they should not get sick. Why not? Because if they do get sick, bring a schus, bring a merit, and then you will become not sick anymore. Says the Gemara that a person who's not sick does not require a special schus because they're not sick. They don't require a special schus to continue not being sick. But chas v'sholem, if they do get sick, then they require a special schus in order to save them from the sickness. So this is the concept that we wanted to share this evening, and we would be remiss not to mention the fact that the famous Ruach Chaim says, the Reb Chaim Volozhiner, the famous Reb Chaim Volozhiner says the following words. He says in Pirkei Avos chapter 5, perhaps maybe we all heard of this, Pirkei Avos chapter 5, it says, Asor Nisyonis Nisnasa Avraham Avinu. There were 10 tests that Avraham Avinu was tested. There were 10 tests that Avraham Avinu was tested, and here the Ruach Chaim is bothered by, why is it that Avraham is called Avraham Avinu, Avraham our father? Why is he called Avraham our father? In other places, he's just called Avraham. He's not called Avraham our father. Why is it here that he's called Avraham our father? So says the Ruach Chaim the famous words. He says, Kikama midos. There are many things that a tzaddik has to work very hard in order to achieve. However, the children inherit that character trait like nature, and they don't even realize the work that was put in order to achieve this. Says the Ruach Chaim, the children, it's easy. All they have to do is pay attention to it a little bit, and they will acquire these traits. Just take a look in the street, says the Ruach Chaim. Take a look in the world. You find many people that they give up their lives for Kiddush Hashem. I once heard a story from my Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg. He says that there was a little girl. She came from a Reformed congregation, completely not affiliated with Judaism, and the Nazis took out a Sefer Torah, and they said to her, dance on this Sefer Torah. They rolled it out onto the street, and they said to her, dance on the Sefer Torah, and she refused. And they said to her, if you don't dance, there's going to be a problem. and she refused to dance, and they beat her until she died. And she died al Kiddush Hashem, not to dance on the Sefer Torah. Where did that come from? A little girl, not affiliated at all. Where does it come from? So easy for a person to give up their life, to give up their future for what? For the Rabbanu Shalom when they never even heard about it. Says the Ruach Hayim. Where does this come from? This comes from Avraham Avinu, because Avraham Avinu worked mutba banu me'avinu Avraham. This is from us, comes from Avraham Avinu. Shimoser nafshe lo kastim. Avraham Avinu gave up his life in Or Kasdim. He was thrown, Nimrod threw him into the fire, and he was willing to do it. This is what, and then says the Ruach Chaim, the famous words, all of a sudden some people, they get a feeling, they want to move to Eretz Yisrael. People want to make Aliyah. I'm making Aliyah. It makes absolutely no sense financially, tutelologically. It makes absolutely no sense, if there's such a word. For them to make Aliyah, it's dangerous, etc. All of a sudden they get this bug in their head. Where does it come from? It comes, says the Ruach Chaim, from Avraham Avinu. This is why he's called Avraham Avinu, Avraham our father. A father is the pshat that he inculcates in his children with hard work, perseverance, a character trait that he has developed himself. And the children have it, and they don't even know the work that was put in. It comes easy for them. Just all they have to do is make a little bit of a commitment. So our forefathers, Klal Yisrael, who were in Mitzrayim, our forefathers, Klal Yisrael, who were in Mitzrayim, what is it? What did they achieve? Everything that we just said. According to the Maral, what they achieved is that they achieved true chayros. What is true chayros? True freedom. It means distancing oneself, reaching into olam haba, reaching into a higher level to distance oneself from servitude. They achieved freedom. They achieved the distance from physicality. They achieved royalty. And with that level, they were able to leave Mitzrayim. So we have this. We have this in ourselves. When we sit down at the Seder table, when we sit down, we celebrate the Seder, we are actually B'nai Chorim, we are actually free people. And our forefathers has inculcated this in us. It comes easy for us, and we may take it for granted. But there is a spiritual freedom, a royalty to Klal Yisrael, to every single individual. So this is on the national level, and mirrored on an individual level is this Gemara in Brachos. This Gemara in Brachos, which says, Rabbi Avo says that a Baal Tshuva can change, and when they do change, they will be greater than the tzaddik. We all have our faults. We all have things that we need to work on, and especially we are motivated in these times of the pandemic, of the virus that is causing us to think about our families, the things that we hear, to think about ourselves, to think about our individual challenges and the things that we can improve on. And when we do, we remember that we're going to be, according to the Maral, reaching to a higher level than ourselves. And according to the Divrei Yeshua, we're going to be using our personal predilections, our personal resources that we have inside of ourselves, which is meant to be in order to change, to transform. This is our opportunity. And what are we doing? We're actually acting out. We're actually acting out what is our national identity, and that is that we are B'nai Chorim on Pesach. And this, I think that this is something that would be important for us to consider when we sit with ourselves, with our immediate family on Pesach night, and celebrate the fact that we lean and we say and declare that we are the B'nai Chorim. And in Mitzvah Hashem, we should all, this pandemic should go away, the virus should go away. We should all be, every single one of us, there's no person in the world that never makes a mistake. We should all be true Bali Tshuva on an individual level, and we should also be on a national level, true B'nai Chorim, true B'nai Malachim, true kings of royalty, as our forefathers have inculcated in ourselves and made it our identity. Thank you.
Yashikar Rabbi Bronstein. Once again, you did not disappoint. This Shabbos is Shabbos Hagadol, and usually in shuls there's a minute to have Shabbos Hagadol drasha, which is partially, halacha and partially drush. So I feel like between Sunday night's drasha was one half, and this will be the other half of that Shabbos Haggadah drasha. So Yasher Koyach. Part 3 in this pre-Pesach series with Rabbi Shor is going to be on Thursday night. That's insights into the Haggadah. So hopefully we could all rejoin again then. Once again, Yasher Koyach Rabbi Bronstein for living up to the billing and for the very words to think about coming this Pesach. Thank you so much.